Hello wrestling fans. 2 YouTube videos in as many days. What is the world coming to? I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of my thoughts, my reactions, and a review of Money in the Bank as it has just happened. It's the next day now, but you've got to realise I was up until 3 AM watching magnificent car crash TV. So I think you'll give me the benefit of the doubt on that one. The first thing to note, I'm just going to briefly touch on the kickoff show here, is that they ran the whole top 10 Money in the Bank moments again, which is an option available to them, of course. They ran the whole thing through. Roman Reigns was still edited out despite a fan backlash against that, so maybe that was the plan in the first place. After briefly being terrified of the idea of JBL with a sword, I then started to play the drinking game. The risk is worth the reward drinking game. I passed out about an hour later. Not really, but I would have done if I'd have been drinking every time they said that. There's such a thing as using your catchphrase too much. My hair looks ridiculous. What is going on? Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro was our first match. It was a very physical match, quite intense. Jeff Hardy got to show what he was all about for anyone who doesn't already know. And I think at this point everybody knows. He's a death-defying jumper. He's just big on the jumping. Jeff Hardy got the win after quite a long match, I thought, for a kickoff show, but to be fair, it was an hour kickoff show and there was only one match. I had expected we'd see Sheamus involved in a post-match beatdown, but I'd imagine they're trying to keep the bar apart for this one because the bar is officially over and people were getting excited about them being on the same brand. The Smackdown Tag Team Championship match opened the show. The New Day would come out to hype the crowd, Big E really riling up everyone in that arena, who of course are going to have a great time during this match. If there was a crowd, they would have been on their feet the whole time. The tempo of this match was incredible. All 4 teams looked great. And we had that thing you get with a lot of 4 corners matches and triple threats, where you have 2 people or 2 teams working in the ring and then a load of people laid out on the outside. So it was a team and a team. One team would swap out, another team would swap in, one team would swap out, another team would swap in. That is a very good way to do it in my eyes. Bit of confusion late on when someone was ejected from ringside. It's a no DQ match, so you can't do anything there. We have to work out something when it comes to this DQ concept. Triple threats and fatal 4-ways back in the Attitude Era, when there was more just like invading of the ring than anywhere else, were not no DQ. So it's certainly a rule that's enforceable. That said, great match, lots happening. Everyone got their stuff in, everyone managed to make themselves look better as a result of this match. The New Day did, however, retain the titles. I expect we're going to see more from the Forgotten Sons soon. They, of course, have just been called up. They have been put over at least a little bit from their debut. They've got some good wins and some good moments. A good long-term feud with the New Day would definitely help like that. But at the same time, we have people like The Miz and Morrison who could still be very involved. What does everyone think of John Morrison's time in the WWE since his return? Please do leave a comment, I'd love to know. The next match was supposed to be R-Truth versus MVP, which came out of nowhere. What actually happened was we got R-Truth versus Bobby Lashley, which came even more out of nowhere. It was a pretty short match. Bobby Lashley looked dominant as per usual. No Lana again, but of course the fact that he did sort of work with MVP here is very interesting. We may see the match that everyone wants, the dream match, that is MVP versus Lana for the services of Bobby Lashley. Tamina challenged the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley, accompanied by Sasha Banks up next. My god, the fashion sense of Sasha Banks looked incredible. Broke a heel in an after-match attack, fairly standard. I keep being told, mostly by commentary, that Tamina is this dominant force. It's never been that way in the booking. If you book her to look like that, I'll start to believe it. But this was just another match where Tamina was made to look powerful and then lost. Admittedly, it was down to the slightest of distractions from Sasha Banks. The referee in the previous match sent someone to the back. This match does feature DQs. Maybe Sasha shouldn't be allowed at ringside anymore. Pretty sure Bayley was still at one. That does leave the question though, who else is left? Tamina, after this loss, has had her push. She will be going back into Gen Pop with the rest of the women's division. Who's left? The only people who haven't really had a title challenge so far are Sonya Deville, also a heel, and of course, Mandy Rose. Bray Wyatt challenging Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship is definitely my in-ring match of the night, I've got to say. It wasn't recorded live, it was pre-recorded for the use of the puppetry, and also a few moments where Braun would vanish. They didn't want the mask of the black sheep to be too visible, for example, so they were able to cut there, give him the mask, set things up for his rise. And also, of course, there was the editing late on where the Fiend would appear in the feed. That was something that Bray Wyatt has taken a lot of attention to detail in. Bray Wyatt has literally written the script for everything that happened with this match and everything that is happening with this feud. Braun Strowman was put over very big, kicking out of Sister Abigail, out-fiending the Fiend, or at least Bray Wyatt, and takes a clean win. That said, this is definitely not over. I'm writing a bit of a retrospective on Bray Wyatt as a character and how the Fiend actually fits with the whole Sister Abigail concept. That'll be on Daily DDT sometime in the future, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Our final in-ring wrestling match, so sort of our Performance Center main event, was an absolute clinic, as you might expect when it comes to Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. I'm starting to get the feel of like the AJ Styles versus John Cena matches here. I would love to see more. Drew McIntyre raised his level ever so slightly, meanwhile Seth Rollins is still one of the best, regardless of whether you love him or not. Both men look great, even though Seth did lose in the end. The final sequence gave a little bit of luck element to it, so while it was beautiful and so fluid, it is something that maybe on a different day something else might happen. Think back to Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker for the first time at WrestleMania, for example. After the match, Drew McIntyre offered a handshake to Seth Rollins. I did not expect Seth Rollins to take that handshake, given the whole heel persona that he's built. But he did. He accepted it. So we had that very magnanimous moment between the two. That could definitely suggest that we're going to get Face Rollins back. R-Truth threatened Tom Brady. That is, of course, because he misses the 24/7 championship. Tom Brady may actually be the 24/7 champion at the moment. We haven't seen it in so long, and God knows how many times it has changed hands since the Gronk took it. Finally, we get to the Money in the Bank match. And this one will live forever in the memory, I tell you that. For different reasons, depending on who you are. I'm in the camp where I'm not the biggest in-ring wrestling fan. I am more of the sports entertainment fan. So this was beautiful for me. I would love to see more of this, mostly just for the introductions. The smack talk as everyone entered the sections where they started, the lobby for the women, the gym for the men, and Carmella's squeaky shoes as she did the moonwalk. I will never not pop for that. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that would essentially take the next 3 hours of my life, even though it was only like a half-hour match. But the match was made up of a section of skits and a few improvised transitions. So you'd get a brief skit that was planned and written out, and then you get people fighting in a corridor or in a lift or an elevator if you're American, of course. There was lots of cameos. I aforementioned the skits, and they had separate people for those. So you had Otis filming separately with John Laurinaitis. You had Rey Mysterio filming separately with Brother Love. You had Otis again filming briefly separately with Doink, whoever it was in the Doink outfit. You had AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan filming with Vince McMahon separately. So those were things that were essentially all done at the same time but in different spots. While that was happening, of course, you had Asuka being recorded in an elevator and everything happening there. The food fight section definitely took the longest. They had to do quite a few reshoots for that one. And I think it took a while to get the briefcase to land where they wanted it to for the finish. That took a few takes as well. But only one take for the murders, which is good. Stephanie McMahon was the only guest appearance that was filmed off-site. That was, of course, filmed at her home, in case it wasn't obvious already. Dana Brooke had some strange moments. She took a briefcase filled with cash, which is good, but it wasn't the briefcase, which shouldn't be a surprise. That said, it was a briefcase full of cash, so maybe keep that. Maybe just take that home. Maybe. She also slid on a wet floor, and that was apparently what took her out of the match. Shayna Baszler also was taken out of the match. This from a triple team, a kick from Asuka, the women's right from Lacey Evans, and a sort of a choke slam into the wall from Nia Jax. Nia also did this to Dana Brooke at a drinks machine. I'm not sure those three things combined, even so, would have been enough to stop Shayna Baszler. Certainly not the Shayna Baszler I am personally terrified of. Asuka won the women's match, which is very fitting because she just outsmarted everyone. An initial attack from behind, getting in the elevator, she's gone. She took 2 hits in total in the entire match, and yet still somehow had less offense, to the women at least. She took the briefcase. The women's section at the top of the building was not the longest. Baron Corbin was also briefly involved. I don't know why he was trying to stop Asuka from taking the briefcase, but I'm going to imagine it's because he wanted Lacey Evans to take the briefcase and they could try the whole power couple thing again. That may be me kayfabing it. I doubt they actually had a reason. Elias made an appearance, and this, unfortunately for me, is probably the one thing that didn't deliver as it should have done. He was there very briefly. He wasn't shown coming onto the roof, which I felt would have helped. And it was a very small thing, immediately overshadowed by what was happening with the briefcase. I'm sure this will build to a feud continuing, but for me it wasn't particularly powerful. I think really they should have had a moment where Elias appeared a bit earlier. Maybe when Corbin said, "I'm going to the roof," as he went through the door, we should have had Elias appearing from behind the door. For example, I think that would have added to it. I will say Otis winning was a definite shock for me. The early favourites Ray J Styles and the betting favourite Aleister Black. So I was confused, delighted, and also unsure as to what happens next. But I like that they had someone from Raw and someone from Smackdown. That is a habit they have had in years past, even though they don't always carry it through. Raw can't win everything. I don't know what's going to happen next. Asuka seems to have a very clear path towards Becky Lynch. My personal opinion is that maybe Nia Jax should win the title, or Shayna Baszler should win the title from Becky Lynch. Keep Asuka as far away from cashing in on Becky Lynch as possible, because Asuka is very quickly going face again, and I am fine with that. Otis, meanwhile, could very easily decide to give his briefcase to Mandy Rose. That's a grey area and a half, but it is certainly a possibility. Nothing makes sense after seeing that match. Due to the tremendous in-ring quality and the bombastic nature of everything that finished, I am giving this pay-per-view an A-. All of the matches had me constantly invested, even though there were some small sections that didn't make too much sense, as well as it being quite short, which is good for me living in the UK. I feel they could have added a bit more to the kickoff. R-Truth and MVP and what happened with Bobby Lashley made no real sense, and I wanted that to be a bit more. And I felt they could have done a little bit more with the format for Money in the Bank. They did great, but maybe with the introduction of Elias, they could have done something slightly different. Shayna Baszler vanishing late on. Those are my negatives. However, everything that happened in that match was frantic, exciting, and different. If they have the main events of every pay-per-view be something incredible like this, we may be onto something here. The Fiend versus Braun Strowman may give us our next shot at Backlash. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Please like, share and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this show. I've been Tom Colohue. Thank you for watching.